Haunted Whispers in the Rain. 7 spine-chilling true tales of sinister secrets revealed. Rachel's heart raced as she listened to the relentless downpour hammering against her windows, a sinister soundtrack to the whispers curling through her home like smoke. Night after night, the rain drummed ominously, drenching her small, cozy house that now felt like a fragile shelter against an unseen threat. She had always thought of this suburb as paradise, quaint picket fences and manicured lawns, but the illusion of safety shattered like glass, leaving jagged edges of fear. As she prepared for yet another night shift at the hospital, tapping away at her phone to check messages, a chill washed over her. Texts from an unknown number bombarded her with dark tidbits about the neighbors. "Did you know the retired cop next door has buried sins deeper than that garden he tends?" each message read, eyes darting back to her kids sleeping soundly, oblivious to the brewing storm outside. "You should visit that elderly couple with the sweet smiles. They have a darker side that would make your skin crawl." The words felt like ice creeping down her spine, feeding her dread as the night grew darker and the wind howled more violently. The whispers gained volume with the rain, each droplet a conspiratorial hiss that tugged of her sanity. It felt as if the storm was drawing out the secrets buried beneath her neighbors' cheerful facades. She found herself captivated and terrified, fragments of tales weaving shadows in her mind. Was the principal really as perfect as he seemed? Her heartbeat echoed in eerie rhythm with the battering rain, a constant reminder of the hidden danger surrounding her. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. That night, the storm surged ferociously, casting shadows that felt alive. Branches scratched at her window like skeletal fingers, each swipe sending a current of dread racing through her. The air thickened with the scent of rain and something rotten, darkening her already worried mind. As she snatched the kids close, the hairs on her neck prickled. Alone in the middle of the night, the weight of reality crashed down around her. If she was unraveling at the seams, who would hear her cries for help? The night wore on, and the whispers grew louder, morphing into anguished cacophony, echoing suspicions already planted deep in her gut. She plunged into unraveling it all, seeking refuge in local folklore that spoke of betrayal birthing a curse that darkened entire families. The fog of terror enveloped Rachel as she cautiously pieced together events, grasping one terrifying truth: her family had roots intertwined with the sins of her neighbors. When she stepped outside that stormy night, the air electrified with tension. A shadow loomed at the edge of her porch, a presence she couldn't see but felt creeping ever closer, tightening the noose of danger around her. Rachel's heart thundered in terror as she realized the whispers weren't just fabrications of her exhaustion, they were warnings. And now the storm raged, blurring the distinctions between friend and foe, truth and treachery. Would she uncover the dark secrets before the sinister whispers swept her and her children into the storm's merciless grasp? The wind howled angrily, tearing at the branches outside like a furious beast. Rachel felt trapped, logic battling with fear. Every corner of her home exuded malevolence. Unable to shake the nagging feeling that someone was watching her, she locked the door, her fingers trembling over the knob. The click reverberated, a hollow sound that sent chills racing down her spine. As time slipped by, she felt a pull, a magnetic force drawing her toward the living room window. The rain blurred the world outside, images of distorted silhouettes passing through it. Were they shadows of her neighbors? Just figments of her overactive imagination? She pressed her face closer to the cold glass, straining her eyes to pierce through the downpour. That's when she saw him, an outline standing motionless, staring directly at her house. Adrenaline surged as she stumbled back, heart pounding in her ears. Was her mind playing tricks on her? In the small town where she once felt safe, paranoia bloomed. She grabbed her phone, checking the unknown messages again, searching for comfort in the unsettling words. The warnings, the taunts, they swirled in her mind. What if her neighbors knew more than they let on? What if they were hiding something sinister? Flashes of the cop next door and the seemingly innocent elderly couple tangled in her thoughts. She could no longer ignore it. Driven by a sudden resolve, she turned to the kids, who had slept through the chaos, seemingly untouched. Could they be in danger? With the storm rattling her home, Rachel decided she needed to confront the secrets lurking in this perfect suburb. Telling herself she was only going to introduce herself to the neighbors was wildly misleading. She planned to scope them out, to evaluate their shadows and behaviors. Taking a deep breath, she pulled on her raincoat and slipped out the door, the fresh storm hitting her like icy needles. Each step felt monumental, drenched in fear, yet weighted with determination. Her mind replayed every malicious text, filling her with dread as she approached the cop's house. The lights flickered dimly within, shadows dancing like puppets across the walls. She wanted to knock, but hesitated, reconsidering her sanity. Instead, she continued to the elderly couple's home, their yard filled with manicured hedges and blooming flowers, a stark contrast to her turmoil. As she stepped closer, an eerie silence engulfed her. The wind stopped, making the world feel suspended in time, like the eye of the storm. She hesitated, peering through the slatted blinds. There was something off about the couple. The way their eyes seemed too bright, smiles too wide. It unsettled her. Suddenly, a creak echoed from the back of the house. It was followed by muffled voices mingling with the rain. Her instincts screamed to turn back, to retreat into the safety of her home where whispers could only grow in her imagination. But she ignored her instincts, edging closer to the back porch where the unsettling murmurs grew louder, barely discernible words cloaked in rain. And just as she did, the back door cracked open, just a sliver, revealing the couple's silhouettes. What were they discussing? Rachel's heart raced, desperate to hear. She pressed herself flat against the wall, bracing for the answers that might unearth her neighborhood's deepest horror. But as the door creaked wider, her breath caught. She recognized one of the voices, the tonality sharp and familiar. We can't let her find out. Panic surged through her chest. Who were they talking about? What did they mean? And just as the awful realization took root in her mind, the rumble of thunder rolled again, drowning out their words. She needed to flee before they noticed her, before whatever dark secret fused their lives pulled her in. But when she turned to escape, the branch that had once scratched at her window now loomed in her path. The wind howled louder as branches grappled at her, one snagging her coat and pulling her back into the storm's clutches. Rachel couldn't shake the feeling of dread that enveloped her. She needed to uncover the truth before it was too late. But what dark fate awaited her if she did? The rain continued to pour, masking the secrets of the night, and those secrets begged to be unearthed. The rain pounded relentlessly, drowning out every sound but its own cruel rhythm. Rachel's breath quickened as she struggled against the grasping branches, adrenaline lighting her veins like fire. Panic was creeping in, wrapping around her like a vice. She had to get away, but something tugged at her, her curiosity clashing violently with caution. Just then, a figure emerged from the shadows of the porch. It was the elderly man, his stooped frame cutting an unsettling silhouette against the light spilling from inside. Rachel froze, her heart hammering louder than the storm. He stepped gingerly into the rain, glancing left and right, his gaze almost predatory. The way he surveyed the area was unsettling, like a wolf checking for strays. "No," she whispered to herself, inching back, but the branch held her captive. As he moved closer, she caught a glimpse of his face, a grin plastered wide across his features. It was a smile devoid of joy, chilling in its intensity. It seemed to pierce through the raindrops, his eyes gleaming with something dark and primal. "Where are you, little girl?" he called into the storm, his voice wavering with a strange sing-song quality. "We just want to play." Every instinct screamed for her to run, to flee back into the safety of her home, but the fear rooted her to the spot. Would they really be hostile, or was this all just a terrible misunderstanding? The memories of her children, vulnerable and sleeping soundly inside, twisted her stomach. She couldn't risk leaving them behind. In a sudden burst, Rachel yanked free of the branch's snare and darted into the shadows of her neighbor's yard. Heart racing, she pressed herself against the cold, wet ground. The rain continued to batter the earth, providing a shroud, but she was terrified any moment would unveil her hiding spot. She heard footsteps, heavy and deliberate. "Come on out, we know you're there." The woman's voice followed, sweet yet laced with menace. "We were just talking about you." Rachel's mind raced as she tried to think of her next move. The couple's behavior only added fuel to her suspicions. Was this all orchestrated? The texts, the whispers, the figure watching her from the storm? They had been laying the groundwork for this moment. Her breath hitched as the sharp realization struck. She wasn't just investigating them. They were investigating her. Then, from the corner of her eye, she noticed a glint. A gutter pipe running down the side of their house. It could lead her to a nearby alley. Could she make it? With her back flat against the cold surface, she calculated the distance while scanning for signs of her pursuers. They were still too close, too eager. "Don't be shy," the man called again. "We only want to help you." Rachel's stomach twisted as she gathered her resolve. Her escape route was now or never. With a rush of adrenaline, she bolted towards the gutter. The clouds rumbled overhead, drenching her as she dashed for her life. A cold wind snapped and howled around her, now a menacing chorus dimming the echo of her footsteps. She caught a glimpse of their faces, their smiles now transformed into grim masks of hunger. Just as she reached the base of the pipe, an arm shot out, grabbing her by the shoulder, swinging her around to face the couple. Their laughter rang out, slicing through the wind. "Where do you think you're going?" The smile on the woman's face morphed into something darker. In that moment, Rachel knew there was no escape, not until she discovered the root of their twisted intentions. Whatever secret they harbored would unravel with her, unless the storm consumed them all. But in that sinister silence, heavily laden with anticipation, what were they hiding? And did Rachel have the strength to uncover it before it was too late? The woman's grip was firm, unyielding, as Rachel struggled to break free. The cold rain beat down around them, the world outside fading into a blurred haze of chaos and noise. She glanced desperately at the alley, a mere breath away, but with their eyes fixed on her, turning back was not an option. "Let go of me!" Rachel cried, panic drawing sharp lines across her voice. Fear clawed at her throat, choking her fights. The couple simply smiled, their faces warped under the shifting light, merging together in an unsettling tableau. "Why would we do that?" the elderly man said, his voice dripping with mock sweetness. "We want to keep playing. It's so much more fun when you don't run away." The air around them thickened, the tension as palpable as the downpour. Rachel's back pressed hard against the rough wall of the side of the house, and she felt the cold seep into her skin. The aching knots in her stomach only tightened. What kind of game were they playing? "Let's take her home," the woman suggested, her tone oddly casual, like they were discussing a leisurely stroll rather than a desperate capture. She leaned closer, as if they shared an intimate secret only they could understand. Rachel's mind raced. The texts, the eyes watching her. What was the connection? Were they simply mad, or was this some twisted family dynamic? "Stop!" she yelled, her voice trembling but assertive. "What do you want from me?" The couple recoiled as if struck. Their smiles faded slightly, but soon returned, stretching to the edges of their gaunt faces. "We want to know you." The man's lips curled forward, revealing stained teeth. "We think you'd be a perfect addition to our family." The word family struck a nerve, sending a jolt through Rachel. It twisted and turned in her gut like a knife. The laughter that followed was hollow and grating, a sound she would never forget. "Family?" Rachel managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're sick." "No, sweet girl. Family has its own secrets," the woman said, inching closer, her wet hair sticking to her forehead as raindrops trickled down her face. "And everyone has a part to play." With every word, the couple stepped closer, their intentions darkening like the storm above. Rachel's body reacted instinctively, adrenaline flooding her veins once more. This was not the moment to parley. In a desperate lunge, she kicked back, her heel connecting with the man's knee. His grip faltered, and she seized the opportunity, tearing away and sprinting toward the gutter pipe. But the opening loomed large, seemingly unattainable, as the couple recovered in an instant, hearts racing with her will to fight. "Run, little girl, run!" the man howled, an eerie roar against the storm's howls. "The game has just begun!" Rachel scrambled, wrapping her fingers around the slick metal, the pipe feeling painfully cold against her skin. As she ventured upward, the rain poured down harder, battling her ascent, each drop feeling like knives against her. She glanced down only once, heart pounding, as their figures blurred, appearing like shadows. Dancing underneath the porch light, the woman raised her arms, gesturing as if she could pull Rachel back into their twisted game with will alone. "Everyone follows the rules!" she shouted, her voice distorted by the downpour. "You can't escape what's already begun." Desperation fueled Rachel's climb. With her foot slipping, she clutched the pipe harder, hoping against hope that she wasn't too late, that she could escape whatever hell had been initiated. But then a whisper floated through the rain, a voice she recognized. "Rachel!" Her heart dropped. It was a voice from inside, the voice of her children. And the storm around her faded as the realization dawned. They were never safe. The sinister intentions were deeper than she could imagine. The couple had already planted their roots in her life. With a newfound determination, she hoisted herself up the pipe, uncertain of what lay ahead, but knowing she needed to understand the truth before it consumed her whole. As she crested the edge, one thought echoed fiercely within her. What waited for her on the other side? Rachel pulled herself over the ledge, heart racing with a mix of fear and hope. She landed unsteadily on the flat rooftop, rain still lashing down like a barrage of tiny needles. The dim light from a nearby street lamp flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced across the surface, making the darkness feel alive. She paused for breath, every muscle in her body aching, her mind racing with thoughts of her children. "Mom!" The voice again, cutting through the chaos like glass shattering. It came from below, thin and terrified. They were close, so close. But what danger lurked beneath, waiting for her to descend? She couldn't risk falling back into their grasp. It was a dark trap, coiled and patient. Her gaze swept the rooftop, searching for an escape route. It was high enough that a fall could kill her, but the couple would surely come after her if she stayed too long. There, A water tower loomed at the far end, a possible way down. Rachel debated, should she risk it or wait? "Mom, help!" It was her son's voice, a haunting echo that twisted in her stomach like a vice. She could not leave them. They needed her. But venturing down might lead her straight into the couple's hands. She was torn, wrestling with a decision that felt heavy like stone. Then a sound, a creaking, followed by a soft pad of footsteps came from the stairs that led up. Her heart seized with dread as she flattened herself against the cold surface. The voices began to drift upwards, sickly sweet and honeyed with malicious intent. "Oh, she thinks she's so clever, doesn't she?" The man's voice, teasing, taunting. "Little does she know we always know where to find her." "She's not getting away from us," the woman added, her laughter punctuating the air. "The family always reunites." Family. The word twisted in Rachel's mind like a knife. The couple had taken over every aspect of her life without her even realizing. Friends had vanished. Strange encounters flooded her days. Had they infiltrated her home? How deep did their reach extend? Rachel's breath came shallowly as she peered cautiously over the edge. The couple stood at the base of the building, their heads tilted up, faces illuminated with the sick glow of the streetlight. They scanned the rooftop, their eyes glinting like knives. Come out, wherever you are." They sang it like a nursery rhyme, which only deepened the fear clawing at Rachel's insides. Gritting her teeth, she turned away from the impending nightmare below and darted to the far side of the roof. The water tower loomed closer, the rickety ladder leading down seeming more stable than confronting the couple. She breathed deeply, counting on adrenaline to carry her. With a swift kick, she landed on the first rung, her wet hands gripping the metal tightly. The rain splattered down, but her focus sharpened. Each step down felt like a step deeper into their dark game. It was more than just a climb. It was a descent into her own horrendous reality. But the moment her foot hit the final rung, a branch snapped. Rachel spun around, eyes wide with panic. She sensed movement, shadows pooling like liquid around the tower base. The couple was moving closer, slowly, surely, a predator's patience hanging thick in the air. "Did you really think you could escape?" the woman called up, her voice carrying a chilling undertone. Rachel's heart thudded in her chest, the weight of hopelessness threatening to crush her as they slowly approached. The distance was closing. The realization sank in. It was not just about escape. The very essence of her family was at stake, twisted and redefined by their hands. Suddenly, a thought pierced through the terror. What if the children were a part of this game too? What if they had willingly entangled themselves in this nightmare? The flicker of betrayal cut through her like a lightning bolt. And yet she had to find them. As rain dripped down her face, mixing with tears of confusion and anger, she steeled herself. "Stay away from them," Rachel shouted, trying to summon a confidence she didn't feel. But the couple merely smiled, their faces eerily calm amidst the storm. They knew something she didn't. "Don't you see? We're all connected in this family." The man's eyes glinted with something dark, something predatory. "And we love our family." Rachel could only gasp as icy fingers of dread snaked up her spine. What had she stumbled into? She took a deep breath, bracing for the confrontation. It would be a fight, her life against their terrible love, and she wouldn't back down. But the question remained, what price would she have to pay to save her children? Rachel's grip on the ladder tightened, the metal cold and slick beneath her fingers. Her heart raced, fists clenching as she listened to the couple's softly, "Ha ha 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 ha." Their words dripped with malice, echoing in the humid air, wrapping around her mind like a noose. She forced herself to breathe deeply, drawing courage from the sheer desperation that surged through her. "Mom, please!" Her son's voice pierced through the storm, raw and filled with fear. She couldn't afford to hesitate any longer. With a last desperate glance at the couple, Rachel swung down from the water tower, feet hitting the ground with a quiet thud, adrenaline quickening her step. The shadows, dark and fluid, danced around her, whispering temptations and promises of safety. She could almost hear the couple call, "Join us, Rachel! Come back to our family!" The mocking tones sent shivers through her veins. She shook her head, wiping away the rain mixing with her tears. This was not her family. They were monsters dressed in comforting cloaks. She ran down the alley, the slick pavement reflecting the dim light from the street above, the rain creating a dangerous sheen that threatened her balance. She had to move. The children needed her, and failure was not an option. Ahead, she saw the entrance of an abandoned building. It could be a trap. It could also be the shelter she desperately needed. Her instinct screamed to avoid it, to keep running, but the cries of her children beckoned her, a siren song that she couldn't ignore. As she darted inside, the musty smell of decay washed over her. The darkness enveloped her like a heavy blanket, and for a moment she felt at peace. But that peace was fleeting. There were no illusions that she was safe. She clenched her fists, the panic swelling like a tide about to breach its barrier. "Mom!" Her daughter's plea joined her son's, urgent and filled with terror. Rachel pressed her back against the wall, trying to steady her breathing. She couldn't let fear swallow her whole. Frantically, she searched the dimly lit room, hoping to find something, anything that could help her. Broken crates littered the area, and a flickering light bulb buzzed above her like a dying insect. Then she heard them. Footsteps. They whispered against the ground, deliberate and slow, like a predator stalking its prey. Rachel's breath hitched as dread pooled in her stomach. Through a dusty window, she caught a glimpse of the couple silhouetted against the rain-soaked street. They were searching, biding their time, waiting for the moment she slipped again. Rachel. A voice twisted her name as if it were a poisonous vine. "You can't hide from us. We always find you." She stayed silent, heart pounding in her ears, urging her to act. In that moment, she recalled a hidden door she'd seen earlier. Her gut twisted, but it was a risk worth taking if it meant buying even a moment of precious time. Rachel moved swiftly, nearly stumbling over a discarded piece of furniture as she approached the hidden door. It creaked ominously. With a quick push, it opened, revealing a dimly lit stairwell that spiraled down into darkness. "Mom, where are you?" The children's voices called again, a thread of hope woven into their cries. Taking a deep breath, Rachel stepped inside and began to descend, the air growing colder with each step. The dank smell of mold filled her nostrils, and the sound of dripping water echoed like distant whispers. She couldn't tell how far she had gone when she stumbled upon a narrow corridor, the flicker of torchlight ahead casting eerie shadows along the walls. There was something about the light that drew her in. Was it a way out, or had she stumbled deeper into the heart of their twisted game? "Stay close, my loves," she whispered, fear strangling her voice even as she tread closer to the source. But the moment before she crossed the threshold felt heavy, as if the door was a gate to the unknown. Suddenly, laughter erupted from behind her, loud and hollow. "Where do you think you're going, Rachel?" The man's voice rang out, slithering around her like the rain outside. Fear exploded in her chest. She glanced back, and there they were, their faces illuminated by that sickly streetlight glow. "Mom!" The voices came again, pleading and panicked, echoing from the dark. With a final gasp, she turned and plunged deeper into the corridor, the laughter fading into the distance. The light grew brighter, and her heart pounded with a desperate rhythm. But she couldn't shake the growing suspicion. Whatever awaited her beyond this threshold, would it be salvation, or a fate worse than her worst fears? She pressed on, the shadows trailing behind her, and with each step a question burned in her mind. Was she truly brave for seeking her children, or merely a moth drawn to the flickering flame? But what awaited her was more than just a confrontation. It was a revelation that would change everything. The corridor opened into an expansive room, dimly lit by the flickering torches secured in brackets along the walls. The air was thick and musty, almost tangible in its heaviness. Rachel stepped cautiously, each footfall sinking into the oppressive silence. Here, the whispers of her children persisted, weaving around her like a chilling embrace. "Mom, please!" The sound pricked her ears, pulling her deeper. She strained to listen, desperate for direction. The walls seemed to close in, mockingly echoing her every worry. Doubt seeped into her mind like the moisture from the walls. They were close. She could feel it. Out of the shadows, shapes materialized, coalescing into forms. The dim yellow shimmer revealed twisted sculptures, grotesque figures embedded with cruel expressions. They looked almost lifelike, resembling the couple above, the couple that haunted her thoughts. Panic knocked hard against her chest. Where were her children? "Mom, help!" Their voices rang out again, urgent and filled with pain, yet still echoing from beyond her reach. Rachel spun, the urgency spurring her on. The first thought was to run, but her feet felt glued to the ground. Rushing forward, she noticed a hole in the far wall, a narrow passageway, barely wide enough to squeeze through. Something about it drew her closer, a beacon of potential salvation. "Just a little further," she murmured, pushing her hands against the jagged edges of the frame. As she crawled through the opening, the sensation of cold air was a shock against her skin. That chill felt like the grip of death, an unwelcome caress wrapping around her limbs. On the other side, she landed in yet another room, more expansive than the last, but barely illuminated. The shadows twisted and relented, as if the darkness itself was sentient, shifting to observe her. She steadied her breath, scanning for her children. Desperation tied knots in her stomach. If her heart was a drum, it beat a frantic rhythm. Something glimmered in the corner of her eye. A reflection? She turned, moving deeper into the gloom. The air tasted metallic, like blood. And then she saw it, a mirror, tall and cracked, standing alone against the wall. "Mom, help!" The voices, clearer now, surged with fury. Clenching her fists, she stepped toward the mirror, its surface rippling as if disturbed by an unseen current. What was she seeing? The room shifted around her, reflective waves painting visions of her children, laughing, crying, pleading, each moment flickering in and out, impossible and wretched. "Mom!" The sorrow laced in her child's plea twisted the knife deeper into her heart. Suddenly, the laughter erupted again, louder this time, violent and full of derision. She spun around to the source, terror strangling her breath. "Rachel, come play with us!" It was the couple, standing aghast in the doorway, shadows stretching in all directions. Their grins split the facade of normalcy, revealing a darkness underneath. Rachel's instincts kicked in, urging her to get out. She dashed back toward the hole, feeling the air thicken as the couple stepped forward, blockading her exit. "Stay with us! We can be a happy family again!" Ignoring their words, Rachel plunged back through the narrow space, scrambling for the other side. They were right behind her, cold breaths escaping their lips, the smell of decay filling the narrow passage. Emerging into the previous corridor, she pressed on with everything she had. The voices faded, yet she felt their pull, weaving a tapestry of despair that sought to drag her back. The corridor split into two. Left led back to the room of horrors, right opened to profound darkness. Without hesitating, she took the right path. In that moment, she heard the whispers again, more insistent than ever, and realized they weren't in her head. They were real. The door slamming shut behind her was a fleeting echo, prompting a final scream. Was it theirs, or was it her own? And then the ground trembled. A heavy thud reverberated through the walls. Rachel stumbled, dread settling in the pit of her stomach. "Mom!" the echo called again, but now it sounded further away. What had she unleashed? As the walls began to shift, she faced the grinding clatter of ancient mechanisms coming to life around her. Something was drawing nearer, and it wasn't just the specter of her fears. Was this where the horror would finally end, or where it truly began? Rachel pressed forward, her heart racing. The darkness ahead was heavy, like a weight on her chest. She barely managed to catch her breath as she glanced back. The shadows behind her seemed to pulse, alive with malice. Were they closing in? "Mom!" The voice, the strangled cry, was distant now, a haunting echo in the corridor that felt more like another world. She turned again, focusing on what lay ahead. The ground continued to tremble, dry dust raining down from the walls above, mixing with the damp air. The pulse of fear surged and receded, a wave across her body. Each step deeper into the darkness made the whispers grow more frenzied, racing through her mind like wild animals. She had to find them. A corner loomed ahead. Rachel held her breath and rounded it. What greeted her was nothing like she expected. A large chamber, expansive and foreboding, filled with grotesque shadows that shifted and quaked with each flicker of the dim lights embedded in the ceiling. Bone-chilling howls erupted, ricocheting off the walls. Rachel flinched, stumbling back, gasping in disbelief. Those sounds, it was as if the very walls themselves were crying out, mourning, warning. Her skin prickled an icy sensation, urging her to retreat. "Mom!" A desperate plea echoed from the far end of the chamber, and before she could second-guess herself, she sprinted forward. She narrowly avoided a shadow that lunged at her, its claws stretching into the air, trying to grasp her, hungry and fierce. She was losing time, losing her children. "Mom, help!" The voice cried again, trembling with urgency. She followed the sound, diving deeper into the chaos, her hands brushing against the rough walls as she maneuvered through stones, slick with moisture, and something far worse, something hot and acidic that made her stomach churn. A glow caught her eye, golden light, a stark contrast to the choking shadows. She stumbled toward it. As she approached, the light crescendoed into a brilliant orb, pulsating like a heartbeat of hope. Maybe this was a way out. But as she reached for it, the air thickened around her. The twisted forms coalesced, shifting closer, angry, as if to protect their precious light. "Join us. Stay with us." Their voices layered over each other, merging into a symphony of dread, each syllable a hook digging deeper into her mind. With a gasp, Rachel pulled her hand back, swiping at her scorching skin, as if trying to erase their presence. They couldn't have her. She wouldn't let them take her. She glanced around the chamber. Her heart sank as she spotted the reflections in the shimmering light. Her children, trapped inside the gleam, reaching out with terrified faces pressed against the glassy surface. "Mom, help us!" They were in there, somewhere beyond the barriers of this nightmarish realm. The cries sliced through her heart. Rage and fear mingled, igniting within her the strength to fight. "I'm coming!" she screamed, her voice ringing with defiance. Clenching her fists, Rachel charged the glowing orb. She could free them. She had to. But just as she reached for the radiance, the twisted forms lunged at her, clawing her arms, dragging her back. Panic surged in her chest, mixing with adrenaline. She blocked out their screams, the darkness clawing at her mind. She couldn't succumb. She couldn't lose herself like that, not when her children needed her. With one last push, she thrust her fingers into the shimmering light, just as the shadows swarmed her, consuming her sanity. The world around her exploded into a million shards of pain and brilliance. Then silence fell. Rachel opened her eyes. Where was she? The shadows had vanished. She was in a dark void, but somehow it felt different. Was this the end, or merely the beginning of something worse? "Mom?" The soft voice broke the darkness. But was that a distant echo, or something more sinister? She strained to see, her heart pounding. Would she dare step deeper into the void? What awaited her if she followed that voice into the dark? Rachel's pulse thudded in her ears as she took a cautious step forward. The voice lingered in the air, delicate yet haunting, pulling her with an urgency she couldn't ignore. Mom? It was her child, but it felt twisted, like a puppet on marionette strings controlling her fear. The darkness clung to her skin, a chilling embrace that sent shivers racing down her spine. Every instinct told her to retreat, yet the voice beckoned with a familiar warmth. She squinted into the void, searching for any sign of her children. Shadows danced just beyond her sight, but they didn't dare approach. Mom? This time it was louder, almost desperate. She couldn't turn back now. With trembling hands, Rachel moved deeper. The air thickened, wrapping around her throat like a noose. Each breath felt labored, as if she were inhaling shadows instead of air. Fear wrestled with hope within her chest. Where were they hiding? What had become of them in this dark expanse? As she advanced, the blackness around her twisted, murmuring in a language she almost understood. A jumble of fears and regrets, memories she'd buried returned, clawing at her sanity. Each step felt like a descent into madness, but the cries were more unbearable. She had to press on. Rachel. A voice slithered through the shadows, mingling with the cries of her children. It was deeper, more sinister. It emerged from the darkness, a rasping whisper that wrapped around her like a dark fog. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice shaking despite her resolve. Her heart raced, adrenaline poured through her veins. "Your past, your choices, they come to collect." The voice echoed, filling the void with a palpable dread. She could feel its reach, as though the darkness had ears, eyes, an intelligence that knew her every secret. The golden light, that beacon of hope, flickered in her mind. Hadn't she just touched it? Her children were trapped inside its brilliance. A surge of anger ignited within her. If they could save their lives, she would fight for them. "Get away from my kids!" Rachel shouted, her voice firm despite the quaver that betrayed her. Shadows flared, wincing from her anger, but they withdrew momentarily. Then, from the corner of her eye, something moved. A flicker, a glimpse of small figures huddled together. Her heart leaped. Lucas! Emma! She darted toward them, but the shadows roared to life, closing in like a wall of black fury. Beware, she is ours, voices hissed from the darkness, 1,000 whispers layered over one another, tinged with malice. Rachel stumbled, her breath hitching as the darkness pressed against her, as if it were alive, hungry for her fear. She was veering dangerously close to despair. If she faltered now, she would lose them forever. Just as she persisted, bolstered by a mother's will, a hand unexpectedly reached for her, glowing softly amidst the void. It was her daughter's hand, shimmering with the golden glow she had chased before. "Mom, please!" Emma's voice broke through the chaos. "There's a way out, Mom. Take my hand." But lurking just beyond them, a shadow with eerily glowing eyes lurked. It slid silently from the darkness, drawing closer, teeth bared in a hungry grin. Rachel's heart raced. Should she reach for her daughter or fend off the creature? Fear was a blinding force, making her dizzy. A choice loomed before her, a path to safety or damnation. Do I save my children or fight the dark? In that moment, she realized it was more than just her children at stake. Something was shifting in her mind, and the shadows were waiting, eager and patient. What other secrets floated just beneath the surface? "Mom!" Emma cried again, her desperate voice slicing through the suffocating dark. And then Rachel saw it. A flicker of doubt, a chance to grasp hold of hope. But at what consequence? Would she grasp the light and risk further entrapment, or claw at the nightmare that bound her children and face the shadows head-on? The answer lurked beyond the veil of darkness, and it was hungry for her choice. What would she dare unlock by reaching deeper into that nightmarish abyss? "Mom!" Emma's voice broke through the dense fog of darkness, a beacon shining through Rachel's confusion. Fear gripped Rachel like a vice, but the love for her children overwhelmed every instinct to flee. It was time to confront the shadows that so desperately wished to ensnare her and her family. "Hold on, I'm coming!" she shouted, her heart pounding as she lunged toward the gleam of her daughter's hand. The shadows slithered and writhed, making choking sounds that echoed in the void, threatening to pull her back into despair. "Now!" Emma urged, her hand shimmering more brightly in the heavy darkness. Rachel reached out, wrapping her fingers around her daughter's warm, glowing hand just as the dark figure lunged toward her, its eyes ablaze with a sinister hunger. The moment their hands connected, a surge of energy coursed through Rachel, electrifying her very being. It radiated from Emma, pushing back against the fears that threatened to engulf them. Rachel felt a flame ignite within, fueled by love and the desperate need to protect her family. "Lucas, grab my other hand!" she screamed, desperation pooling in her chest. The shadows twisted more ferociously now, hissing and moaning like agitated spirits. But in that moment, something shifted. A flicker of light danced along the other side, and Rachel could see Lucas, trembling but alive. "Mom!" he cried, and the warmth of his voice sent ripples of courage crashing through her. With every ounce of her will, Rachel turned her body, pulling Emma toward her and establishing a lifeline to Lucas. She felt their hands reach out, forming an unbreakable cord of love and unity. Just as the shadow surged forward to break them apart, they clasped hands together, creating a barrier of glowing energy that rippled through the darkness. "No!" they shouted in unison, the combined force of their resolve pushing the shadows back. As the darkness recoiled, Rachel ushered her children closer. "Stay together! We have to move!" They huddled, hearts racing as they took cautious steps forward, illuminating the depths around them with the power of their connection. The booming echoes of the oppressive void faltered as light seeped from their hands, forcing steam-like images of the couple who haunted them. They writhed in anguish, distorted and twisted by the balance of power formed by Rachel and her children. "You can't leave!" the dark figures shrieked, their voices mingling into a horrific symphony of desperation and rage. They flailed as tendrils of darkness fought to pull the family apart, but the bond between Rachel and her children grew stronger, their collective courage forming an unyielding shield. "Hold on!" Rachel cried, her voice ironclad with determination. With each echoing step they took, the shadows dwindled, the echoes fading, until only silence lingered. It felt surreal, the tension uncoiling as they created a clear path. Gradually, a portal shimmered ahead. It glowed with warmth, coaxing them forward, a stark contrast to the dark, crackling abyss behind. The voices, once ferocious and chilling, faded into murmurs of disbelief. The couple's twisted faces contorted in confusion and agony. "Mom, there!" Lucas urged, his eyes brightening as he pointed. "Let's go!" Rachel pulled her children into a sprint, adrenaline igniting their movements. The shimmering light pulsed as they drew nearer, beckoning them like an impending salvation. With a final burst of energy, they dived through the portal, tumbling out into familiar warmth, the storm outside replaced with comfortable daylight. The sunlight streamed down, cleansing the remnants of fear that clung to them. Rachel blinked, disoriented, but alive. For a moment, they stood in the center of their living room, the rain now simply a gentle patter against the windows, a soft symphony of reassurance. She looked down at Lucas and Emma, their faces alive with relief and joy. "We did it," Emma whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. "We're okay." Rachel knelt, pulling her children close. The warmth of their bodies was a comforting reminder of the battle they had just faced. She felt the rise and fall of their chests, the gentle rhythm of their hearts, a lullaby that washed away the last echoes of darkness. Her heartbeat steadied as she wrapped her arms around them, holding them tightly as though she could shield them from harm forever. "Never let anyone take away our family again," Rachel promised, her voice filled with resolve. Then, as if the universe responded to her words, the harsh tones of the rain softened outside, a gentle reminder of the dark ghosts they had left behind. The couple's sinister influence had been turned back, their shadows receding into whispers, lost in the light of the new day. With her children safe by her side, Rachel finally took a deep, cleansing breath. They had emerged from the storm, and it felt like a new beginning. They would heal, they would share their story, and the power of their unity would guard against the whisperings of the past. "I love you so much," Rachel said, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I love you too, Mom," both children chimed, their infectious laughter the sweetest music. But somewhere, nestled in the shadows beyond the sunlight, the couple's hold was thinning, yet not entirely erased. The whispers sang quietly, reminding Rachel that the darkness may hide but never sleeps. However, she was ready. They had all fought together, and together they would stand against any future storms. And if the darker forces ever tested them again, she would be prepared. She would never forget the power of love and unity. This was not just the end, it was simply the beginning. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this eerie conclusion. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this epic finale. Only true fans understand the weight of your support.